Okay, with no further ado, we will go ahead and begin. So we're going to start with Mr. Arias. Give us your best idea for improving Fresno's economy.
The best and most effective idea in improving the economy is to diversify it from its agriculture foundation and historical limitations of simply having an economy based on agriculture and everything related to agriculture. As a perfect example, Bitwise has created several hundred jobs in the last few years without any direct subsidy from government. And they've been able to generate a lot more disposable income than most companies that have received $70 million in city subsidies like Amazon, Alta, and the Gap. So the best way to do that is to strengthen the education system and intentionally diversify our economy beyond agriculture into other sectors that provide disposable income and upward mobility. And I think we've done that successfully in a couple of areas, and we have to do more of it.
Mr. Wildstar. Are you there, Nicholas?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of fading in now. Give us your best idea for improving Fresno's economy.
Well, job expansion to promote industry as homes are
It's really hard to hear you, Nicholas. Maybe you want to log out, log back in real quick. It's kind of difficult. You're kind of cutting in and out a lot.
Better?
Yeah, it looks better. Why don't you give us your thoughts on the best way to improve Fresno's economy?
Well, that to
you're kind of freezing up again. I don't know if there's a way that maybe you could change your location just slightly, see if you get a better signal.
Maybe he could dial in just via phone.
Yeah, that's true. We don't have to have you on video.
That would be preferable.
Okay. While we have Miguel, we'll go on to the next question. Okay, Miguel. So how would you rate crime in the city, and what do you want to do about it?
I would say crime has increased to historic levels. We recently saw a small decline, but it is violent crime is the highest that we've seen in the last 20 years. Property crime, of course, is through the roof also. We have seen some of the more concerning numbers that I've seen is between 2020 and 2021, we saw a reduction of 100,000 calls to the 911 dispatch center, which tells me that folks have stopped bothering to call police when property crime and other crimes occur. So it's been a significant problem for us. We have, as a council, allocated every single dollar that has been asked for, plus some by the police chief and the mayor. Every single budget we've approved, we've increased the police department's budget. We've increased the amount of officers beyond the request of the police chief and the mayor. And yet there hasn't been a direct correlation in decreasing crime, primarily based around the fact that a quarter of our police officers still remain unavailable to show up to their assigned duties because of long-term medical leaves and retirements. That we're getting to that sweet spot of people have been here for the maximum years possible and they're ready to retire, and we have not been able to keep up with the attrition rate. So as a city, we have allocated an enormous amount of resources, but the police department has not been able to put those resources into effect proactively. So we've had to rely on alternatives to reducing crime. Advanced Peace is one of those places. They just finished their research study, which demonstrated again, that it's worked in other cities, and specifically it's worked in Fresno, and it's had a direct correlation with the reduction of violent shootings and violent crime. So I think we need to do more of the alternative strategies to reducing crime versus simply relying on the police department, as it's taken us some time to rebuild the police department, in all frankness, from the last 2 years.
Okay, absent the other candidates, I think we're okay to do a little follow-up here. So when you talk, Miguel, about alternative strategies, detail what you mean by that. Well,
Yeah.
obviously, advanced peace we know about, but beyond that.
So I'll give you an example. Historically, the police department would apply for grants for enforcement. The reason whether they're drunken city is because every grant that we applied for was to pay for overtime of police DUI checkpoints. Most cities apply for public safety grants for prevention programs, not for enforcement programs. This last year, for the first time, we made the administration change their application for the public safety grant at the state level to actually focus on prevention programs. And we received $1.5 million in state grants. In the past, all that grant money would be requested for police equipment, militarized vehicles, things that you use when you're reacting to crime versus preventing crime. So I think we could be doing more of that, is actually applying for prevention funds and for prevention techniques and strategies versus enforcement equipment and techniques. And I do believe, on that final point, that prevention doesn't belong in the police department, which has been the historical place for prevention programs. I believe prevention programs belong in the parks department, and that's why the council reassigned the prevention department under parks versus police, where it had been for 25 years.
Next question kind of dovetails to that point. Do you think too much money currently goes to the police department? And explain your reasoning.
I think our police department is understaffed in patrol. I think they are I think the current model of policing by Fresno has demonstrated to be ineffective. It's based on the militarization framework, where every unit is specialized and every unit has a very specific task, which tends to result in is not every officer's responsibility to prevent crime in the city and to respond to crime. I've seen that most intimately when it comes to human trafficking. You have officers parked observing human trafficking take place in front of them and around them, but they're not the sex unit, therefore they don't act. They're not the traffic unit, therefore they don't act. So I don't believe the current model can continue if we're to reduce crime in the city of Fresno going forward.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Nicholas. Are you back with us? Can you hear us, Nicholas?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Your camera kind of cuts in and out. Let's go back real quick to the question about what's one way you would improve the economy.
Spurring job growth by allowing businesses here in Fresno to exist tax-free. Support tax exemption and tax reduction here in Fresno, as well as having Fresno be AB 105 exempt, or AB 5 exempt, to allow our independent contractors to be able to get back to work. I really feel like since the coronavirus pandemic, that a lot of the people that have lost their jobs right now are just looking for other job opportunities. And unfortunately, with a lot of businesses closing their doors, that has reduced that significantly. That's why I also plan on promoting the creation of a manufacturing plant to create 3D printed homes to be provided for the homeless. This would be a way to provide jobs for those in need, as well as provide housing for those in need as well, and affordable housing. So it could bring bring money to the city, as well as jobs, and hopefully I'll be able to get support from the other board members and the mayor to do such a thing. But of course, that's only the tip of the iceberg.
All right, we'll go to the next question that Mr. Arias has already answered. How would you rate crime in the city, and what do you want to do about it?
Well, based where I'm from, and have lived in California. I moved here from Orange County about 2 years ago, and my experiences in Fresno have been quite pleasant so far. I've heard about the break-ins and mailboxes being destroyed and the streetcar racing. So, if anything, it seems to be a bit more milder from Southern California. But I do feel like with the residents' concerns, that needs to be addressed definitely, especially in my district, where the biggest request from residents is that they want to see more patrols by police officers in the neighborhoods, which seems to be non-existent. There's lots of streetcar racing because of it, so I also support the implementation of speed bump development. That's also being requested by residents. So there's other ways that we can reduce the amount of small crimes here in the city, as well as reducing the amount of policies that are being enforced and making crimes out of innocent people. So it's a twofold way of approaching the situation, and I'll be open to any and all ideas to help reduce the amount of crime that does exist here in Fresno.
Okay, very good. We're going to start with you again on the next question. Tell us about your approach for helping homeless people in Fresno, Mr. Watson.
I believe I just answered that a bit with my 3D printed home solution. 3D printed technology has existed for quite some time, and if we were to develop our own 3D printing manufacturing plant in Fresno, we could take the recyclable materials and use that to build the foundation for these homes, which can be built in less than 24 hours, and some models cost less than $10,000. These are 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, full capability homes that we can make available to our families that are living on the streets, not only on the streets literally, but in these hotel rooms that the city has prompted put most of these people in, as well as those living out of their cars that are being ignored and not being included in these homeless counts. So the 3D printed homes are self-sustainable. It's a way for us to utilize new technology, as well as provide job opportunities for those in need. If those people that are living on the streets need a job, that would be a way for them to learn a new skill. And as I said, be also an opportunity to address affordable housing, which leads to the homelessness, is people living paycheck to paycheck, not being able to make their rent. And we want to make sure that there's more housing available for those renters. So wraparound services, providing mental health services or mental health and drug rehabilitation is also something that needs to be expanded, because from what I've heard, it's completely inadequate. Some of the services take a long time for applicants to even get qualified. So it's very difficult, and we need to make it much more easier for those in need.
Great, thank you. Miguel, detail for us your approach to helping homeless people.
Sure. In the last 3 years, I spent my time focusing on homeless and housing. I chair both council committees. And in that time, I have initiated the development of 22 separate housing projects in my district alone. They include emergency overnight shelters, which is the pallet shelters at Poveralo, transitional housing for the homeless, which are the 10 motels that we've acquired, 9 of them in my district, permanent supportive housing, which is what we'll be doing the grand opening for next month, funded by the Housing Authority and the city. High density, multifamily housing, and of course, single family market rate housing as well, and permanent affordable housing, which is what we're doing in West Fresno and in the Central Unified area. So my approach is very simple. There is not a silver bullet for the housing crisis and homeless crisis we have. If you talk to the homeless residents, which today I was at the Renquillo 180 homeless encampment where there's 42 individuals, and then another one on Fresno B Street where there's 7 individuals, you'll find out that every homeless resident in our city has different needs, different backgrounds, and different stories on how they got there, and ultimately the different root cause on why they're homeless. So you have to provide a series of housing options and support services. We have been successful in housing nearly 2,000 homeless residents to date since the pandemic began. Our biggest challenge has become finding permanent affordable housing to transition them into. There is a huge backlog in permanent affordable housing in the city of Fresno. That's why I have so many affordable housing projects in my district alone, but they do take about 4 years to build and at least 7 to 10 funding sources to be able to build an affordable housing project. So we're going to have to wrestle with the theme of rent control, of mobile home parks. When we're at a position as a city where mobile home park tenants are being priced out, we officially have a crisis that we needed to take on from different angles.
Pardon me,
Okay,
am I
great.
able to add an additional statement to my answer?
Well, let's keep it to about 30 seconds, please.
Certainly. I'd also work to get rid of the ordinance that was just passed by city council members to prevent people of the public from being able to enter homeless encampments. My wife and I and friends and family members, we go out and actually feed the homeless and, work with different church organizations. And we don't want them to be able to be prevented from being able to provide additional assistance in need, to those in need.
Okay, thank you. Got it. All right, Mr. Arias, we'll start with you on this one. Where do you think new industrial parks should be located?
Far away from residential neighborhoods and equally distributed across the city, including affluent areas of town. The way the city's zoning was designed, all industrial was in South Fresno. Very little industrial is in North Fresno. As you know, there's plenty of hundreds of thousands of acres in North Fresno, both in Northwest and Northeast, that are currently, planned for tract homes. They can easily also contain, distribution centers and industrial uses. So I've made it clear to the administration that everybody should benefit from the amenities of a city, but everyone should also have to deal with the responsibilities and the burdens of a big city. In this case, industrial development is a burden and a responsibility that they have to go somewhere. And I think they should be distributed equally across the city. There's plenty of space along the 99, the 41, the 168. Industrial centers are typically located around freeways. In Fresno, we have 4 of them, equally distributed across the city, where there could be plenty of intersections and areas where industrial development can occur.
Mr. Wildstar, where do you think new industrial parks should be located?
I think it's a matter of speaking with residents that are looking for jobs in their neighborhoods. That's the issue right now. Is a lot of people feel like they're excluded from these conversations, and the decisions are being made for them without their opinion. I don't want to be the type of representative that is not listening to the people that I'm supposed to be representing, no matter what end of my district they're in, or no matter where they are in Fresno. So it's a matter of, again, speaking with residents, having city council meetings that are open to the public, where they are fully informed as to where I guess we're plotting on making breaking ground. And it's also a matter of working with the city planner's office to find out where we could actually, allow this industrial development, because the compartmentalization has also prevented a lot of the development. And that's why I also think it's a matter of reviewing and fast tracking some of these development projects that have been held up this entire time, like the aquarium and other things that the people in the city are demanding. So it's a matter of, again, listening to them, figuring out what's available to us as council members, and then making it happen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wildstar, we'll start with you on this next question. What grade would you give Mayor Jerry Dyer and why?
That's a good question. I actually ran against Dyer as a mayoral candidate, so I'll reserve my personal judgment and just focus on what he's done over the past 2 years now. I would give him about a 6. I'm not too satisfied with how he handled the pandemic by closing down businesses. I support every person's freedom of choice, and I don't think that they should have been robbed that opportunity, even though it's a declared emergency. So businesses should have had the choice on how they want to conduct business during that time, or if they wanted to remain open or not, as well as customers being able to go out, and the public having an opportunity to explore parks and other places in the city that were closed down. So I'm, again, not too happy with his performance there, as well as with homelessness. A lot of people are satisfied that the freeways are a little bit clearer, but in my district, there seems to be a growth of homelessness because of that displacement from those people that were living in those areas. So I don't think it was proper planning, but I am happy with his efforts to help beautify Fresno, since I'm extremely supportive of making sure that our community looks up to the standards that we all want and desire, and that's a clean community. I actually organized community cleanups myself and did a few over the holidays, and would have joined Mayor Dyer when he arranged his over the holidays as well, if I hadn't had other commitments. But I look forward to working with him over the next few years, and to help bring those shortcomings to a greater standing.
Very good. Mr. Arias, what grade would you give Mayor Dyer and why?
I just finished up my one-on-one meeting with him today, about right before you guys. So I'm very blunt with the mayor, and I tell him this, I give him this feedback on a weekly basis. My grade for him would be a C-. He continues to not meet my expectation in addressing the citywide crisis of homelessness with a citywide strategy. His strategy so far for homelessness has been a South Fresno solution. And I'm willing to accept and house as many people as possible, because it's better for them to be in a motel that's renovated with supportive services and food than to be out in the streets. But, a citywide crisis deserves a citywide solution. I haven't seen that from him. Secondly, I have not seen him take the bull from the horns when it comes to the planning department. That is our single largest obstacle that we control. We don't control a lot of things when it comes to development of housing. We don't control interest rates, market demands, funding sources at federal state level. But what we do control is planning. I haven't seen him take any action to improve the bureaucratic processes and procedures for planning. I still have to play the role as council member of, a developer and, shepherding projects through the planning process. And lastly, I haven't seen his promises to invest in South Fresno be met with actions and budget proposals. Although, he speaks about, and I've told him this today, One Fresno banners, I haven't seen that represented in his budget proposal. Not one additional penny in South Fresno beyond what every mayor has done for the last 20 years. Not one additional investment beyond what's typical and what's automatic. So I have hope, and I have a good working relationship with him. But it's my responsibility, I believe, to make sure that he doesn't simply show up to West Fresno and do a photo op and make a promise, but he actually delivers with actions.
Okay, thank you. Miguel, we'll come back to you for this next question. So what's behind the dysfunction that currently exists on the city council, and what can be done about it?
Personally, I don't think there can be anything done with the one individual that chooses to engage in dysfunction and distraction on a daily basis. It's one individual. Unfortunately, when the cameras are on, he's chosen to, speak to a very small group of followers that he has. When the camera's off, we all have an amazing cordial relationship. Me and my council colleague Butterfield laugh and giggle and have a better relationship than most on the council. But when the cameras are on and the KMJ platform's available, it's a different scenario. I can tell you that 5 council members on this diocese spend 10, 12-hour days working through getting projects completed and infrastructure improved. It's not what is perceived, nor what our residents care about. I've been walking doors for the last 6 months this week in the entire district because we're trimming trees. Not one resident has brought up issues of credit cards or of, what happens on a dais. What they are concerned about is trimming the right tree, not, killing the one that's been around for 6 years, fixing the roads, improving police response to property crimes, and fixing the park that's nearby that's dilapidated. So I don't know how we can convince one individual who doesn't have a district that has a lot of needs to focus on the rest of the city like that council seat has historically done.
Mr. Wildstar, what's behind the dysfunction that currently exists on the council, and what can be done about it?
Well, I'm not a council member, but from my research, it seems to be a lot of discourse between the council members. Not too many people seem to agree on just one thing. And when there does, there seems to be a stacking of the cards and a lot of influence by financial donors or special relationships. And I agree with Mr. Arias. There seems to be a lot of behind closed doors activity, which he himself has even been accused of being involved in. So the people of the city are sick of the scandals and backstabbing that they feel is coming from the council. And I don't know what Arias has experienced in speaking with the residents, but everybody in my district that I've knocked on doors and have spoken with have shared their concerns with the amount of money that's been frivolously spent and mismanaged by this council, including Mr. Arias. So they have a problem with the cards, with the city council cards, which former council member Mike Briggs actually informed me actually didn't exist for a long time. So it's a matter of, again, making sure that whoever is taking over that city council seat is responsible to the people that elected them and put them in that position, not to some land developer or other organization that's made campaign contributions or has a special relationship with someone. So I believe it's, again, a matter of accountability, which is why I'll be promoting exactly that as a city council member.
All right, thank you. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues if any has a question.
I do have a question. A few years, for years, people have looked at the downtown area, and I know that, they're with the opening up of Fulton Street, that was one effort to try and make it work. The construction of a high-speed rail was supposed to help also. I know the pandemic sort of like gave, punched punched those efforts to some degree because all of a sudden everyone started working from home, and downtown sort of became a little bit empty, even during the weekdays when most people would flock downtown to work. What can be done to speed up that process as far as making downtown boom again? Of course, you may say the completion of the high-speed rail and other developments, but what is being done? What can be done? Downtown is in your district. Everyone wants to see downtown be healthy. So what efforts do you think you can do to make sure that downtown becomes viable?
Well, I'll begin with Mr. Wildstar on that question.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Well, from what I've learned since the early 70s, there's been a lot of empty promises about the downtown area and how much more developed it could be. I think it's a matter of special interest and, again, reluctance on city council members to actually get the job done, because that ends the amount of money, taxpayers' money, that they continue to be able to funnel into these projects. So I strongly support free market development, ending the bureaucracy, cutting the government red tape that's preventing business growth in downtown, that's preventing other land developers from being able to break ground they would like to. And the licensure, the zoning, all of those restrictions that are, again, preventing more building in the downtown area, as well as a promotion of more events in that area as well. I mean, I'm not sure what the council has planned as far as, again, fully constructing the aquarium, but I think that would be a great place to either pick up the project or promote for another business to come along and get it built already. But that's more so what people are looking for, just more options. And I'm not going to be reliant upon the government to provide them for me. And as a city council member, I won't be reliant upon other city council members or the mayor to make that happen either. I think I will be using my position to promote more growth in the free market, more than anything.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Arias.
Sure. Juan, what the pandemic taught us was that our reliance on revitalizing downtown through office space had huge shortcomings. And we've identified two major obstacles to the development and flourishing of downtown. One is the lack of infrastructure. The only new infrastructure in downtown in the last 40 years is the repaved street on Fulton Street. But all the infrastructure underneath is about 100 years old. So whenever somebody wants to develop a housing project or turn the JCPenney building, which is being converted now into housing, 35% of the construction cost is underneath the ground. That was the challenge with Hotel Fresno. That's a challenge with the South Stadium project. That's a challenge for the JCPenney building being converted to housing. We are finalizing a plan to rebuild all the infrastructure proactively as a city as part of the next utility rate increase, so that we can upgrade all the infrastructure and don't have to pass it on to the development of projects. The second barrier was what we call land speculators. A lot of people bought buildings with the hope that one day somebody would cash them out for 10 times the price that they paid for it. That's why we passed a vacant building ordinance. Now you can't sit on Bank of Italy for 15 years without touching it and letting it deteriorate over time. The vacant building ordinance is going to require and is requiring businesses, including the city of Fresno, to make basic investments into the building. Fire suppression systems, power must be operating in the building, security alarms must be activated, it must be secure. That's making the cost of city simply land banking much higher and convincing people to sell their properties to plenty of outside investors. Before, we were giving subsidies for people to develop in downtown. Now we don't have to subsidize any housing in downtown. The market forces have justified that reinvestment. And lastly, we established the Downtown Blackstone Reinvestment District. So every new revenue generated in downtown and Blackstone will be reinvested back into the same area on infrastructure.
Very good. Joe or Maria, do you have any questions for our candidates?
I was kind of wondering just how much money they have raised so far and who are the major contributors to those campaigns.
Okay, Miguel, you want to lead off there?
Sure. I've raised $150,000, give or take a few dollars that I haven't checked in lately on. It's about $150,000. My major contributors are IBEW, the Carpenters Union, the Iron Workers. They have all maxed out. Granville has, I think, given me about $4,000 in total. Commercial developers, the Vibes Restaurant in Tower District has given me a max out of $4,900. A couple of small businesses, Modernist has given me a couple of $1,000. So small businesses in the Tower and the downtown area, developers both in residential, commercial, and every labor union in the city, and mostly building trades. I haven't received nor requested money from the Police Association, is the only labor union, and I didn't request or take on any contributions while we were in negotiations with other unions in this last 2 years.
And there's no way I'm going to be able to get $150,000. I'm truly a grassroots candidate. The majority of my funding has come from the hardworking people of Fresno and California that would like to see me be elected. I've only fundraised a little less than $1,000, and that's not because I'm not getting the message out there, because I don't think that it takes that amount of money to actually do exactly that. The amount of people that I've been able to connect with is significant, and they're not looking for another bought out politician that's going to come into this election spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, trying to get elected to a public position that people feel like, again, is untrustworthy. So I'm hoping to keep my dollar amount as low as possible and utilize it and maximize it as much as possible to make my impact to the people of Fresno and my district to get the amounts voted, the amounts I need to get voted into office.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
I'm not going to get any union support or any of those organizations. I don't expect to.
So what was the amount again that you raised so far?
Myself,
Mm-hmm.
about 1,000.
Okay,
No,
very good.
there's a third candidate in this race too, Tad.
There is a third candidate, but he has not made our appointed time. So I'm going to have to try to chase him down.
I wonder if he's what his fundraising is.
I have no idea.
I have one question for Miguel. So a few weeks ago, you made some comments from the dais about the district attorney. Has she responded to you, or what has happened as a result of that?
I haven't spoken to her directly in about 6 months, I want to say, but she has not responded, nor have I engaged with her. She has sent messages to third parties, but that's normal.
Yeah. All right.
All right, gentlemen, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for meeting with us. You are free to go. I'm going to have my Ed board members remain with me. Thank you very much.